people have stopped joining. So welcome people to the December UK AVD user group. So it's been a while since I've done these, so apologies for those people who have missed it. Just not had time. Work's been insanely busy, so spare time has been not much. So hopefully we can get back into a bit of a rhythm, but a little hint about that surely. Okay, let me just go to it. Okay, so agenda. So unfortunately, normally Shabazz is with us, but he can't make it today. He's been to London, so he's had a very long drive back, so he's exhausted. So he's getting there. So hello Shabazz, if you're watching it later. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to cover the latest AVD news and also the latest video updates. Ryan Mangan is just going to give us a quick 5 minutes. He said 5 minutes. See how long it's going to take. 5 to 10 minutes, he said. He's going to give us a quick update on the latest Appcure releases. And then we've got Rachel. So Rachel is going to tell us about listening to Azure. So that sounds quite interesting. And then we've got Jakub. So Jakub's going to give us a short story of how to build a Windows 365 environment. So I don't know about you guys, but we're seeing definitely quite a big uptake on Windows 365, certainly over the past 3 months or so. When it first launched, we weren't really seeing that much. Now pretty much every conversation I'm having with customers, Windows 365 is discussed. So it's definitely gaining traction as they seem to release more and more features. So it'll be interesting to see Jakub's presentation on that. Okay. All right, so a bit introduction to myself if you don't know me. So I've been around over 20 years in IT. I currently work for a company called Nerdio as a field CTO. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of our latest releases. Obviously the co-founder of the AVD community, so that's a worldwide community, and also the UK AVD user group. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and also you can find me on Twitter and my website's there as well. We'll add Guy in, so prepare for jokes, people. Hey, Guy. And also Shabazz. So unfortunately, Shaz can't be with us tonight, unfortunately. But Shabazz normally runs this with me, so he's sort of the co-host of this. So that's a bit about Shabazz. Okay. All right. So we meet once a month. First day. Well, this is what's supposed to happen, but as I said, it's been extremely busy lately. So I've not really had time. I'm not going to say too much at this stage, but we've got some big changes coming. More details are going to be announced on the 15th of August. Not 15th, I keep on saying 15th of August, the 15th of December. We're going to make a big announcement. So that's going to change quite a lot. We're basically going to be doing a lot more in-person presentations. Okay, so we're massively expanding. So I can't say too much at this stage, but all will be revealed on the 15th of December. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the latest news. So I'm going to combine the latest Nerdio news and also the latest AVD news as well. So what I'm actually going to go through, rather than just go through this slide, I'm just going to go through the release notes for Nerdio because they give you some pretty pictures and stuff. So if you just give me 1 second. Okay. Yep. Okay. So some latest releases that we've got for Nerdio. Totally awesome feature is what we call our intelligent Azure capacity extender. And what this does, if you run out with your VM SKUs within the region, we'll automatically flick it to a different version. So for example, if one region has run out of V5 or V4 VMs, we'll just automatically start up with a V3 VM. So it stops those problems where you over capacity within an Azure region, because we'll automatically flick to a different SKU. So very, very, very cool feature, and everyone we've spoken to so far loves it. So very, very cool feature. User self-service resize. So again, another good feature. So this is for personal desktops. So if you've got users, for example, who are developers, who do kind of camp stuff and they want to switch between different GPU desktops and they have different power requirements, they can easily just flick to those different type of desktops themselves. We can, from the admin console, we can predefine what VMs they go to. And then we can also reset it afterwards as well. So we can, like, after a week, after a day, for example, we can say, right, you've had this for a day, now you can go back to your normal VM size as well. So that's especially useful for developers who want to sort of compile code and they need a bit of extra oomph, they can just go in there and resize their own VM, and then just restore it back to a normal size. At the end of the day, would have done that capabilities. So very, very cool feature. FX profile reset. So if your user's got a corrupt profile, or if you want to delete their profile because they've left the company, and directly from the Nerdio console, we can now go in and just delete that FX logic profile, or just delete it and obviously get the user logged back on, which is effectively a reset. So again, really, really cool feature. Azure Compute Gallery replicas. So as we know, when you deploy a VM via the Azure Compute Gallery, you have a limitation on the amount of VMs you can do once due to the replicas. So what we've actually introduced is the ability to change this within the console. It used to be quite difficult to change it. You had to go into the Azure Compute Gallery and change it. But now we can do this directly when we're creating the image, so we can increase the replicas as well. Another feature we've introduced as well is the FX logic file and folder redirection. So this is actually a feature which not many people know about, but it is actually really, really powerful. And what you can actually do with FX logic is you can actually redirect things outside of the user's profile. So a license file is a good example of that, where if you've got a legacy application which is writing to say C licenses.txt or something like that, we can actually get FX logics to redirect that as part of the user's profile, so it follows the user around. Okay, so it used to be quite difficult to do that. You had to run a command line to do it. We've now included that within the Nerdio console as well, so that again we can configure that on all the session hosts at once as well. We've included some hostful cloning enhancements, so you can now clone a hostful to include it more types of information as well. So that makes hostful cloning a lot easier. Global search, so you can now do global search using Nerdio, so you can search across all your resources. Now we've just added user sessions and remote apps to that as well, so you can search for those. Bypass test drain mode for personal hostfuls. So if we want to put a hostful in drain mode, for example, we can now bypass it for personal hostfuls. And another feature we've added is the Cloud PC regional setting. So we're trying to keep in SKU with what Microsoft are releasing. So we've added the Cloud PC regional setting within the Nerdio console as well. So if you want to manage Cloud PC via Nerdio, you can also do that as well. And we've also got a few bug fixes. Okay, so that's it for the early updates. As I said, to me, the killer features from this month are intelligent as a capacity extender, fixes all your problems about VMs not being available, as in you don't actually have them within your region, as in physical not available, or if you run out of SKUs or something, so that fixes that. And user self-service resize. I've probably spoke to 4 customers this week about this, and they all kind of love it. So if you do have that requirement, come speak to me. I'll be more than happy to have a chat with you. Okay, so that's it for my Nerdio talk. I'll now go on to the latest news for Azure Virtual Desktop. So RDP short path is now GA. So this has been in public preview for a while now, and it's now general availability, which means obviously it's fully supported. So if you've got any customers who are obviously holding back testing this because it's in public preview, it's now fully supported, so you can now do it GA. It's actually enabled by default as well now, so if you don't really have to go and enable it, it's all enabled out of the box. So hopefully if you're using it, you've seen a humongous improvement in user experience. Certainly when I was testing it, I certainly did. You get a lot better performance because, number one, using UDP, and secondly, we're going straight from the client onto the session host, so you don't have to go to the gateway. So very, very much improved traffic flow. Okay, so the next one is confidential virtual machine support for Azure Virtual Desktop. So that's now with public preview. So obviously we had the Gen 2 VMs where that gave a bit of extra capability, but what can now we do is confidential virtual machines. And what that essentially does, that's using a new VM SKU, which uses the AMD processors, and it just means it looks at this sort of confidentiality and integrity of the sort of operating system, essentially. So if you've got it's like a trusted launch on steroids. So if it detects like the operating system and anything running within the operating system, just to make sure that no one's sort of modifying any code or doing anything that they shouldn't be doing. So very, very cool feature. So very much for those secure environments as well. So if you've got customers, I mean, if we look at this from a sort of very high level, Azure Virtual Desktop, if you're bothered about security, makes a whole lot of sense. right? Because you can really lock down your network, all your VMs within Azure Data Center. We now can have like VMs secure like this as well. So if you're a sort of hacker or something and sort of trying to sort of get into these machines and do stuff, you're going to find it very difficult and compared to as you would do with a normal default physical machine, for example. So very, very, very cool. Okay, Azure Virtual Desktop metadata is now based in India. So if you've got customers in India who can't deploy because of their metadata for data confidentiality and data confidence and all that kind of stuff, we can now deploy to India. So hopefully that's going to unlock a few use cases for deploying. So, but again, this is just for the metadata. So people sometimes get confused about all the host pools. This is the metadata. So this is the Azure Virtual Desktop configuration. And the reason why people get a bit iffy about this is because it actually contains like all the information about who's assigned to a desktop, that kind of information, and the host pool names and all that stuff. So people who are really bothered about sort of data security, they prefer it to be within their own region, rather than having to go across regions from like the UK to the US, for example. So that's good news that we've now got that with India. AVD Insights at scale. So essentially what this is if you look at AVD Insights, which is constantly improving, by the way, it's constantly getting better and better and better. You have to select an individual host pool to see what's going on. We can now do that across all your host pools within your environment. So it gives you a very nice overview about what's happening with the environment. Okay, so we don't have to sort of go and look at every single different host pool. I can just select all my host pools and have a look and see how many sessions hosts I've got, how many host pools, what host pools are in drain mode, how many users we've got connected, the available capacity, that type of information as well. So again, another great feature that Microsoft keep on improving. Okay, and that is all I have for the news. So obviously I didn't want to go back 3 months because we could have been there all night, because we are still getting like lots of really, really cool Azure Virtual Desktop features. So Ryan, I'm going to hand it over to you to give you a quick update on some new exciting Appcure integrations.
Thanks, Neil. And yes, we're going to be talking about Nerdio again.
Yeah.
So for everybody who doesn't know who I am, the one who's always complaining about something, my name is Ryan Mangan, and I work for Appcure. I'm also familiar with AVD and things like that. So what I wanted to do real quickly tonight was just talk about a tech preview integration we've done with Nerdio and some of the kind of things we've been working on at Appcure. Don't worry, I will keep it short and sweet, probably about 5 to 10 minutes tops. So just to kind of, obviously, for those who don't know what Appcure is a packaging and aggregation technology which has 4 different disks. So the kind of name Appcure is a specific reason around the name. Sorry, it's capture, update, remediate, and execute. And these are 4 particular pillars and sections within the product itself. And obviously, one of our USPs, the priority technology, is if you don't have installation media, we have a running capture, which essentially allows you to grab that application off anything from Windows 95 all the way up to modern OS and then produce that. Recent work we've done, which we're announcing next week, we achieved 90% success in a global organization into MSIX. So that will be mentioned next week, but we are having some incredible success and got some great stories with customers and helping them get to production quicker. And obviously this kind of links into obviously the relationship with Nerdio. As you can see, if you remember, if you've seen it before, our little jigsaw puzzle is getting much bigger as time goes on. We get to production quicker methodology with statement we make is because basically we process applications very quick. I think it's from anything from 30 seconds to 4 minutes an application. And that allows you to do the 80-20 rule. That means get through all the applications and then fix the ones which need 20% human interaction. And that enables us using all these different technologies to get as close as possible to 100%. Sadly, there's 7 trillion plus applications out there in the world. It's doubtful that everybody will ever achieve 100%, but it's always worth trying, right? Something to work towards. As you'll notice on the tile, there's other things out there like Workspace ONE, Parallels RAS. But today we're going to be talking about Nerdio, just up here. Before we talk about Nerdio, real quickly, just to remind you how running capture works is effectively we have a server or a client device. We install our agent on it, and we capture the application while it's running. It may need to be run multiple times if there's various components in the application. However, we capture while it's running and put it into a file. Once we've got that, we then go over to our second component called Packager, which then allows us to spit out into this wide variety of formats. You'll also notice Neil talked about app file containers and redirection of license keys. You'll notice that we also support that and able to plug into it. So it's a very good technology for those where you need to offload specific components so it follows with the user. And obviously we output into the workspace of your choice, particularly AVD, which is my favorite. So let's look at Nerdio real quickly. So we have various different technologies, and just to kind of call out the 4 key ones, we running capture, which is a big USP, install capture, common applications. So we have the access to over 400 public repository applications, which we can quickly download and then spit out into the packaging format of your choice. We can connect to SCCM and download around about 8,000 applications in 24 hours. Noted that subject to speed of the network and disks, etc. However, we have achieved that on testing today. So we can connect to SCCM and pull all the installation media out, index it, and then process it through. And then there's also AppV conversion, which is a big kind of project focus within the enterprise world. And as you can see here, we then take all them packages and slip them into a MSIX format and then process them into Nerdio. And what's cool about Nerdio, and I'm very hard to please, I must admit, but Nerdio has a very good technology for MSIX app attach because they've built their own repository system, which makes things slightly easier than going around the houses with native AVD. So here's a very brief demo. So what I'm going to show you very quickly is batch processing of MSIX packages. So Appcure proprietary technology, we have probably the biggest portfolio of tools for MSIX app attach. So we're putting multiple MSIXs into a MSIX image, testing all sorts of various things, converting from and to SIM, modifying, adjusting, checking for candidacy, whether it will work on AVD, will it work in MSIX app attach. Lots and lots of different things you can do very quickly to kind of understand. But today, we're just quickly showing batch processing and then into Nerdio. So first of all, I've got these MSIX packages which are packaged into the MSIX format. And I'm just going to go to the batch processing button. And you'll notice it's literally just one folder we select, and it'll go through automatically, dynamically resize, name, and all this fancy stuff in the background from our intelligence service we've built. This will quickly create your MSIX images, approximately around about 10 to 20 seconds per package. Doesn't take too long. And then what we're going to do is transfer it to Azure files. The only delay we have would be getting them into Azure files if it's on premises. If it's already in Azure, the speed, as you probably can guess, transferring is pretty quick. So once that's finished, waiting for things to finish, progress bars are 50% of our careers. I bet all of you will agree. Should put that on the CV. Once this is finished, we'll then move over to the integration, which is for the Nerdio piece. Again, still waiting for it to finish, but we'll move over anyway. There we go, job finished. So that's gone and batch processed all of them packages into MSIX image format. We then go over to execute and go to the Nerdio app. The first thing I'm going to do is authenticate with the API. There's an API page you need to fill out. However, today I'm just going to skip that. Go to MSIX app attach in Nerdio, and you'll note there's no MSIX images in Nerdio as of yet. So you can upload a certificate as well, just to make it easier, and that's what lists any apps published in Nerdio. And the third tab is which is where we import 2 buttons, get the share, and obviously load the MSIX images. And what I've done here, I'm just going to pause that quickly while I talk, is what I've done is I've already preloaded all of them images earlier on into Azure files, so you don't have to wait for me to do it. And straight away, the tool identifies all of them and lists them out in there. All you need to do in the middle where it says version is you need to set the version number if you need to. And once you're finished, at the bottom right-hand corner, it says import into Nerdio. So I'm just going to change the version on a couple of them just to show that. And click import. And what will happen now is it'll go through and it'll automatically process them into Nerdio. What's interesting as well is that if you've already got an AVD environment with app attach, we can very quickly, in a matter of, I think, 10 seconds per application, is process them straight across from native AVD into Nerdio. So if you've been using it native for a long time, then you want to move into Nerdio for improved management, I'll pause it again quickly. You can use obviously Appcure to process all of them and transfer them across in a matter of seconds. Also, if you just want to do them one by one and upload them into Azure files, it also supports that as well. So I'm just going to select a particular application here, give it a different version. So I'm actually going to demonstrate a version change. So wait for this to upload. What we do when it's uploaded is we change the version number and then click import into Nerdio, and that will basically upload a new version of that and update Nerdio and say this is the adjusted version for this particular application. So here we go. That's uploaded into storage. Change the version, then click import when we're done. There we go. That's been updated. And if we refresh Nerdio, we should be able to see that either processed or being processed. The fact it's come back to the client and told us on the Appcure Studio that it's working, it's already processed. The only thing you need to do when we do bulk import is go through each one and make the changes in there for each particular app. So I'm just going to put a few in here now. As you can see, it's nice and simple, no fancy stuff here. We have found that processing all of the MSIX packages locally and then convert them to MSIX app attach, we can pretty much convert about 50 apps, 40 to 50 apps an hour, much faster than using automated services in some cases. And as you can see, all the apps are now listed, and you can see the descriptions have also been updated. And that is Alice. Done. Right, so just some material to look at. We are a Microsoft startup, so Microsoft recognizes a startup, and we are supported heavily by Microsoft Parallels, Nerdio, VMware, Citrix, and all the others. If you want to know more about Appcure and how we can help, feel free to get in touch. If you've got any questions, obviously I'll hang around. I'm going to be around in the background anyway, but feel free to reach out directly or through chat. Over to you, Neil.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. So, yeah, I mean, pretty cool, right? So applications are something which most people forget about and leave till last when they do the kind of migration projects. And this is a huge step forward in fixing that application problem. So kudos to you, Ryan, for building this for us. Great technology, and we hope that plenty of people are going to use it. So I'm happy to speak to anyone as well who wants to sort of work with myself and Ryan to get yourself a really cool AVD environment where applications are not a problem anymore. Okay, cool. All right, so next we have Rachel. So Rachel, do you want to share your screen and go ahead?
There we go. Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, I'll just skip on to the next slide. I was going to actually just show screenshots, but I'm going to do something I don't usually do since there aren't too many people to watch me mess up, and actually try and do it live on my demo system. So I'll try and be brave. Okay, so I work for EG Innovations, who are a monitoring vendor. We have 4 kind of areas we work in. Digital workspace monitoring, which is this kind of Citrix, VMware, Horizon. So that's where you'll see us alongside kind of work Citrix point solutions like ControlUp, Goliath, those kind of people. But we have 3 other quite big areas of business where we do application performance monitoring, which is where we tend to overlap more with people like Datadog, Dynatrace, Logic Monitor. And we do some enterprise application monitoring, which is Office 365, SharePoint, SAP, we do a lot of. And we also do unified end-to-end monitoring of just lots of stuff, networking, storage, cloud, a lot of cloud use cases with Kubernetes that aren't workspace. You'll see people like we quite often replace SolarWinds in that kind of market. What I'm going to talk to you about today is I'm going to try and show some things that are coming in from the other areas of the business rather than the digital workspace monitoring, rather than a Citrix clone. A lot of the products that have come from the workspace market have a very that kind of Citrix, very focused, everything's a user, a session, a computer, lots of grids of metrics saying CPU, RAM for hundreds of user sessions, lots of session hosts. We do all the host monitoring and the host pool monitoring for AVD. I'm going to try and show you some of the stuff around that, where that's not proving enough and where we're getting asked for other stuff. As an observability solution, a third-party vendor perspective, what we're being asked to do is fill the gaps in observability and automation. Things you can't, or everything I'm going to show you, this isn't a product demo, everything I'm going to show you is accessible via the Azure portal. We're using standard APIs. You can build your own dashboards to do similar things, but these are things where people often don't know that they can actually, automatically monitor Azure Advisor. And this is the kind of things we're being asked to put in around AVD deployments. Monitoring is really about telling you've got a problem. Observability is trying to do the root cause. We've got an AI ops engine in there that does automatic root cause diagnostics. From the APM side, because we're there, we can be looking at tens of thousands of containers scaling up and down. So a lot of the principles and the kind of how this is being presented and the interfaces and what we're picking up has come from that side of very big scale cloud usage. And we're starting to see the AVD deployments getting bigger. Time is money. Whatever you do, whatever product you use, setting up, maintaining your thresholds and alerts, getting them stable, getting alerts correlated so that if you're a host pool, if you've got a big problem on one host, you don't want millions and millions of little text messages or alerts going off for every single user. You want those kind of alerts correlated, so you just get actually your host pool's got your session host's got a problem. We're also being asked, a lot of people are trying to automate this kind of monitoring for compliance and management by process. They want to make sure that they clear out their Azure AD users, get rid of dormant users by process. Often it's the application availability that matters. It doesn't really matter if your host and your VM and your desktop's okay if the actual application isn't. We're seeing a lot of mixed kind of infrastructure, on-prem, hybrid, and multi-cloud, and that's where people are kind of struggling. How do you they will often have apps in their AVD desktops dependent on databases or an Active Directory on AWS, and how do you kind of get your head around that? The Azure portal, I think most people will agree it can be hard to get an overview. It's hard to do some things like find orphan disk snapshots. You rely on users checking certain blades or building dashboards on top. So everything I'm showing you can build yourself. And this might give you some ideas of what you might want to add. We've actually put some functionality in for a customer recently because they specifically want us to automate finding their orphan disks and stuff, and I can show you that. Of course, you need the in-guest agents and things like that for user experience and troubleshooting and right-sizing VMs. That's pretty standard across the board in most monitoring solutions. We get asked to do synthetic and simulated testing, log-on simulators, full session simulators, that kind of thing. Whenever I look at the Azure portal, I kind of I don't know if anyone else feels a bit like this. It's like, oh my God, there's just like stuff everywhere and bits, and I don't know where everything is. So a lot of this is coming from the kind of, if anyone's a big Mrs. Hinch fan, lists, things you can go and check. Can I go and clear out redundant disks easily, once a month? Can I check that that's been done? Some of the things we see put in business cases, why waste and clutter are a bad thing. It's if you are monitoring and managing, that should say more than you need to. you've got red herrings in there distracting from the true cause. You don't want dead stuff, orphan stuff lying around. You don't really want dormant accounts, unused interfaces. That's, that just leaves you a bigger footprint for security problems. Big thing we're being asked about is correlating billing data to performance. Are you spending too much money on what you've got? Are you spending it on services you don't need in Azure? If your user experience can be impacted if you've got VMs the wrong size. And of course, there's the environmental thing. So what I'm going to cover, these 6 things, take a note and remind me when I forget what I'm doing. Just talk a bit about Azure billing, your budgets, what Azure Advisor. I don't know how it, have many of you used Azure Advisor recently? Another top tip: find and turn off and delete unused things and orphan things. Right size things like VMs. Locate them close to users. Avoid security breach costs and the problems with security breaches. You really do need to look at the end-to-end service and connection of all the users. Also, sometimes you might not be wanting to use entirely Azure system. Oops, sorry, I don't know what my phone's doing there. We're seeing people having to look at us in the context of Azure versus hybrid multi-cloud. That could be some services, particularly databases we see quite a lot on Amazon. And also look at where you use expert staff and people building tooling is where we're seeing a lot of people. We're seeing people come to us because they've underestimated how much skills they need, somebody to build a script to do this, custom queries, those kind of things. Okay, so I said I was going to start with billing. Okay, so this might look a little bit of an unfamiliar kind of interface. This is very much from the, as I said, the kind of Dynatrace Datadog application performance monitoring kind of interface. When I log on to our product, I get a massive list of every problem that I've got in my AV. I've got a small AVD demo lab set up. If you look at this list, I am monitoring my hosts and my users and my sessions. At the moment, I've got absolutely no problems with the hosts themselves, but I've got problems with them. I should mention this as a shared system where some of our test engineers are allowed to use it as a sandbox to set up tests and develop tests of broken things. So there's always something broken in here, which is why it's quite a fun place to play around. So at the moment, everything's designed to try and guide you to what the problem is immediately, because there's so much going on. I think it's pretty obvious. My biggest problem at the moment is that my AD Connect between an on-premises Active Directory has got a serious problem, and that's actually going to stop anyone who's held in the Active Directory logging on. So upfront, those are my problems. But from this point, as I said, it's not if you're used to Citrix workspace kind of point solutions, quite often they don't measure very many measurements. Here we've got nearly 11,000 different metrics and events and logs being monitored for this tiny little AVD deployment. I've got a single host pool in there. And in there I've got 2 session hosts, and I think I've got about 3 users on each. So this is very much from that AI ops kind of platform, APM paradigm. It's very much a build a dashboard, color code it, so you can see what any of your problems are and drill down kind of approach. I can show you what are. So this is the setup I've got here today. I've got, sorry, that's the login simulator at the start of it. But this is the topology of the session. As I said, we are like a lot of people who put in agents and things and monitor host pools and session hosts. That bit is actually about the only thing that is healthy in this system. But on got a simulator that's continually testing. Users also then, real users also come through. We're monitoring the broker, we're monitoring the subscription, and then I've got an Azure Active Directory connected to the on-premises one. And as I said, I was going to first of all talk about billing. So if we go in, so this is our Azure subscription, and we've got various things sitting on top of it. So this is pretty typical in big cloud. It's a layer model. So basically, this is everything we're monitoring in the Azure subscription, broken up into areas. In this case, billing's its own little area. So I can look at my billing details for the current month. That's a detailed diagnosis, and this will tell me everything that I'm being charged for. It is really good idea if you can. I'll show you some other views. So if you do want to get into that gritty kind of view for a specific metric that is more familiar, like with the Citrix workspaces, this kind of icon is a comparison icon and just takes you into that little gritty view. So here we go. So let's have a look at what this AVD deployment we're actually spending money on. So it's a very simple system, and there are some SQL databases backing up some apps in there. We've got some NetApp storage that the FS Logic is sitting on. We've got some other storage for various things. And what you'll find, or most people find, is that they end up paying for, it's not just your virtual machine costs that you want to look at the cost of. Quite a lot of the time, it's your storage costs. And then there are all these various bits of services that people try out and add in, and quite often, because I'm monitoring this through our own product, I've got very little going through log analytics at the moment, so that's why that's so cheap at the moment. Okay, so this is the kind of thing you can look at. We can go in, we can, let's have a look at our VM costs. Okay. So I'll go over to the graph icon. So let's go back a few hours. So, oh, yep, that's what we like to see, these kind of, and what you'll find is, however you look at your billing data, you will start seeing patterns like this, that this is where we've been spinning up some things. So we can see little incremental bits coming through. This system hasn't been up that long, so yeah. So towards the end of last month, you can see that on VMs, you know, this was not pretty much exciting. I haven't been doing anything with my VMs, but particularly they've been pretty static usage. So this gives you the kind of idea of the kind of costs we've got for a month. And just getting used to, usually you'll see much more variation, actually understanding your billing costs, and you can look at anomalies, you can start looking at events, if you get spikes and things. Here, this is our info icon will tell me for all my services what I've got alerts set on out of the box. So basically, we have a measure that's, are my charges exceeding my Azure budget? If so, raise an alert. That's the kind of alerting you might want to put in, so that you know instantly if somebody's made a mistake. We had someone who spun something up You also, when you're kind of setting up these kind of alert thresholds, you need to look at the sampling. A lot of metrics in Azure aren't updated that regularly. Things like storage usage, billing, some of these things are done on 6 hours, some of them are done 24 hours. So if you're polling that every 5 minutes or 3 seconds, it's a waste of API calls, it's a waste of data storage if you're using log analytics. So just be very aware of the sampling. Now, what I'll show you is one of the things that we've put into the Azure infrastructure layer is that we actually, as I said, you can go through the blades and find all this stuff, but we pull off all the recommendations from Azure Advisor. We've actually got alerts set up. So because I've got some alerts, this is going to show up in that alert thing. Somebody's going to have to actually go and close this alert and say, I've dealt with this. I've decided that I like or don't like the recommendations. The recommendations can be really quite, I can guarantee you it'll tell me that I want to purchase reserved instances or saving plans. It's very, very keen to flog you subscription rather than pay as you go things. In our case, we go through somebody goes through every month on some of our systems goes, nope, close this. We're not going to do. We're going to ignore whatever because we know that actually this system's going to be down in 3 months and not used. That kind of thing. It's definitely worth looking at the other areas. Security is the big one. A lot of our customers automatically monitor these security recommendations. Performance and you can get some operational excellence. What's in there at the moment? Switch to Azure monitor alerts for backup. I'm not sure what that means, but you can go in and find them. You can find some really weird stuff under, I've seen security recommendations under performance and high availability. It's great if you process these by process. We also watch our quotas so that you don't suddenly find that you need a whole load of extra machines and not got time to extend your quota or whatever. Now, this is what we just put in for a customer. And this was what I was saying about my second point. You know, I said, you know, learn to find your way about billing. This is about deleting and turning off unused resources. We've actually put some code in and some intelligence that goes through and looks for orphaned things. And this is what a couple of our particularly big customers want to know. So we've got alerts set up. And so this is probably a list of things you might want to snapshot of things that you want to go hunting for and figure out how whatever your product you use, how it will quote find this kind of things. There are some things that are almost public, I would say security things, like you don't want unused public IPs lying around. We've got some app service plans that we probably don't want to be paying for. Old snapshots, those can get abandoned. Unused disks, you know, it's quite often, it's very, very common to find those hanging around. Somebody's gone through, I had a bunch last week, I found, and somebody's gone through and deleted them, which is a little bit of a nuisance. Let me think, what was I going to show you then? Oh yeah, so I also talked about right sizing things. So, oops, sorry, if we go back. So this is probably kind of, I have to show you for completeness. So we've got our little host pool, we've got little overview, everything's happy. Oh, I've got 4 active users. We can go in and look at the session hosts. Typically, it's your user experience metrics that will really tell you if you've got an undersized VM. and you can look at all these kind of things. You can look at these historically. Let's go. That's actually my FS logic container for this user. Let's have a look at a user. So this cloud user one, we can see what the CPU of their processes look like, what the memory process is like. You can look at all this can be collated and aggregated by users. So let's have a look at the graph. So what does this person look like over the last 3 weeks? So this has been shut down for a while, but you can see actually this user's not been CPU constrained. It's possible you could even give them a slightly smaller VM. Let's have a look. Okay, so one of the things that I mentioned, and I'll come back to, is that we are actually explicitly monitoring the AVD broker. That means that we can pull up logon data, and this is captured by, this isn't some kind of hacky script that's run after the users run in. This is actually directly from the APIs, which means we capture it by process every single time. A lot of this data, so there's data that's lost that you can't just get by an after the event script, even if it's triggered. Azure uses reverse connect, so you lose things like the client IP and things. So look at what you're pulling off the broker, particularly if you're looking at login data. This is a little kind of so again, the broker is something that we add in to the session topology and keep a very close eye on. Show you another view of the so I'll just show you another view of the broker going back. So it's actually from the broker you can pick up things like your host and drain modes. We've got some alerts, the automatic alerting that's set up out of the box on idle hosts. If you're consistently getting a lot of idle hosts, that's wastage. We don't like idle hosts. What else can I show you? What was on my list? Oh, yes. I was, if you remember that topology diagram I showed you, and I had some big problems in my AVD, in my Active Directory, logging on. Let's go back and let's have a look at the Azure Active Directory. So, there's my Azure Active Directory. Hopefully most people are familiar with this kind of thing. If you are monitoring and set up the right data in the Azure portal, all this information is there somewhere. You can look at your interactive sign-in, so that's users actually typing in their password. You can pick up on failed sign-ins, watching those. You know, those can be the first sign of a breach or an attempted breach. In the identity layer, let's go down, and so most of the time, most of this stuff is green, and it's only if there's a problem, something will turn orange and tell me to go and look at it. So users, as you can see, you know, inactive users are not good. If users who haven't signed in since they were created, if I look for details of those users, as you can see, we deliberately leave some of these people, but we've got a bunch of people who haven't signed in for, you know, best part of a year. Do you really want those people lying, those kind of accounts lying around? So there's all those kind of goodies that we can pick up. Now, I won't show you much more of that. Oh yeah, I might actually just show you. As I said, we've got 11,000 different metrics and logs in there. Through
Rachel,
this, yeah.
can you just go through each one of those with us, please?
Which one? Sorry.
The 11,000.
No.
plenty of time.
Well, this is the point. These are the kind of scales that APM products are used to. And so these kind of interfaces where it's literally, this is designed to be used by a child. Something turns red, click on it, and it'll tell you what's wrong. So if I click, what do I want to know what's wrong with my AD connector? Okay, its operational status is buggered. There's some sort of configuration issue. So this is the kind of stuff that these test teams do. They're continually deliberately breaking things. So somebody set this up to have a problem. So this will kind of, so that if you've got lots of people who can't log on, this is at the moment nobody's trying to log on through Active Directory, so I haven't got any alerts. But this kind of monitoring will preempt it. Now, as I said, keep an eye on your storage costs and your performance for costs. I'll just, if I go back, where is my Azure subscription? Because a lot of people who are using AVD will find that they're going to be buying some sort of storage. Apparently my storage is all healthy at the moment. That could be some NetApp files, get quite a lot of blob storage hanging around, that kind of thing. So typically, let's see what we've got. So out of the box, these are the most important things that we monitor. These tell me if my storage is performant. And so from this, you can judge, you know, am I spending too much for the level of performance I'm getting? Could I spend less? Could I take a little bit of a performance hit? That kind of thing. If I want to go into cheaper storage. Most of these are on dynamic alerts that learn like by time of day. That's standard in APM. You'll see it in Azure Monitor as well. So if you're doing alerts on storage, whether that's through log analytics or whatever, you probably want to be, particularly as depending on the use case, the pattern on the storage of usage can be very, very different. So static thresholds, other than for percentage of storage used up, don't really make a huge amount of sense. Always want to be monitoring all your storage for if it's going to run out. Right, I'm going to switch to a slightly different system. So is this going to come up for me? Perhaps I've I think I've let my session go. May have let my session go dead. I have. Something's happened there. I killed that session. See if I can. Oh, that's better. Okay, so this is actually a Citrix. This isn't actually an AVD system, but this is something we did for a real customer. I'm coming on to my fifth point about think about your license. All our licenses are transferable between, we don't care if you monitor Citrix, AVD, Amazon Workspaces, don't care if it's an Azure SQL database or an on-premises Oracle database, you can move your licenses around. We don't do weird per Citrix session licensing or things, you can just move stuff around. So this is actually a Citrix system. It's partly on-prem, partly in cloud. Exactly the same kind of interface when you come in. What's wrong? Oh, look, I've got the biggest problem I've got at the moment is some VMware's server's got rogue process. Single click diagnosis. Oh, there's a big backup job running on that server that presumably is also impacting any users that are sitting on the server. But if we go in, so I'll go in and look at my topology map. I'll show that again. So this is the topology map of, this is actually a topology map we copied off a real customer. And this kind of reflects my point about what I was saying about hybrid infrastructures and people doing things for value. This particular customer has a whole bunch of Citrix virtual apps that sit on their own VMware bare metal servers. They also have put in a bunch of like bursting stuff. That they've got some Citrix Zen apps sitting on top of AWS. They've also got some, this is actually a financial customer. They've also got some bespoke, lovely little Java applications that are key to their critical services. And they rely on some databases, Oracle it happens to be. This is one of the things we monitor because we monitor apps and app servers as well. So this is actually Java application server. It's it's probably Tomcat, but because they how they develop these apps, I think they use Visual Studio. These are actually sitting on an Azure subscription. So if you I didn't have time to set up something as complicated as this, but it's not unusual to have AVD users relying on applications that they've then got on top of it. Let's see, what are you, Tomcat or something? This Java application server. So we've got some sort of JVM engine that they're running. So we're monitoring that for them as well. But this is what I was saying about, actually, you probably want to look at it particularly if you're doing it with a big customer or someone who has these kind of workflows. That these systems, all the Citrix stuff could actually be AVD, but it's quite likely that the actual services that, so somebody might phone up and say, I can't get my app on AVD, but it could be all going down into this kind of, and I'm just trying to think, what was my, so that's just, think about how much lock-in you want. Complex topologies, look for transferable licensing. At this point, you also want to look at how much agnostic tooling and scripting or third-party parties. Where's your comfort level? Do you want to go and build stuff, dashboards to do this yourself? Do you want to use tools that support multiple technologies? Are you going to go the Terraform, or are you going to actually go, well, hey, I'm going all in with the Bicep and Azure specific stuff? And I'm sure I had a number 6 on that. Oh yeah, expert staff. So I think I've shown you quite a lot of dashboards and how we've had users come and ask us to present information. They want all these alerts triggered. A lot of them we've got alert integrations with things like Freshdesk and ServiceNow. That's one we're being asked for a lot because they want to process them by issues by process. Is really look at how much time people are wasting trying to find information in Azure portal and what's going to cut down. You don't want your summer student who's doing L1 or L2 level support thrashing around your Azure subscription, possibly, which is where we get used as a kind of abstraction. I think, is that, I'll go back to the chat window. Does anyone have any questions? I'm sure Neil does.
Yeah, so my only question is, obviously, you mentioned you're getting all this data from API. Are you reading the kind of Azure Virtual Desktop APIs, or are you just looking at like log analytics data to get this information around the AVD session usage?
It can be both. we pull it off. We've got logs. We're using Azure APIs. We're using we're getting some stuff via log analytics.
Okay.
You don't not all of the data goes through log analytics because you don't necessarily want the costs attached. And as I said, a lot of what has been difficult has been tuning the sampling, because I don't know if people have come across how limited API calls are limited, so you can't just have a product polling, especially if you want to get that end-to-end coverage.
Yes,
polling things.
I'm very familiar with the API problem.
Yeah, and you don't. I mean, that's one of the things. We've got quite a lot of customers because we monitor multiple subscriptions. We've got quite a lot of people who've used multiple subscriptions to try and get around that problem. And there's a whole lot of Advisor doesn't update. I've seen products that pull off every metric at, ridiculously high. A lot of this, Azure itself, because it's designed to do it at scale and cheaply for them, a lot of this data isn't updated very often.
Yes.
And so you want to go away and check that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Awesome.
So,
Does anybody else have any other questions for Rachel before we hand over to our next guest? Oh,
nobody.
okay.
Oh, I feel
Thanks,
hurt.
Rachel. It's very good. I mean, monitoring something which not a lot of people do, but really should do, because there's a lot which goes on inside your environments that you don't really know about, right? So unless you start looking at tools like this, so it's very cool.
I would, even if you're going to go and do it yourself and you want to go with native tools or you want to go with freeware, whatever, I would go and get a demo of as many different products as you can, because it's very easy to show people what's there and ignore what you're not doing. Yeah. As I said, when we went into that system, there was absolutely no performance or user issue. I didn't actually show you any historical data, but we have reports built in at, these kind of things. You can set this kind of report up in that's on the AWS. Sorry, is that the where am I? Sorry, that's my AWS system. I've just got confused which system I was looking at. But you can pull up all these kind of reports on users, slow logins, top users, user experience historically and live. Those kind of reports, you can set up yourself in things like Monitor. Go and look at what products offer you how to go and see if there are useful reports in a commercial product. Go and look at, we're getting a lot like the Active Directory and that kind of bit in the broker for the login data. That's terribly important now. There are a whole load of products out there that just do session pool, host, user sessions, but actually most of the time you never even get that far. If there's a key Azure service down, if there's, a few weeks ago Azure front door was down, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Well, we need to go to the next session.
Okay.
So thank you very much for that, Rachel. It's a very, very interesting session. Hopefully a lot of people got a lot out of that. So Jakub, all over to you. So Jakub's going to tell us all about his Windows 365 journey and sort of how to deploy Windows 365, which personally I'm seeing that more and more out there. I'm certainly having a lot of conversation with customers around Windows 365. So I'm interested to see what we got to tell us, Jakub.
Yeah. Does everyone see my screen?
Yep, we can see your screen.
Yeah. Okay, the name of the presentation is From a Local Device to Cloud PC, a short story how to build a Windows 365 environment. Couple words about me. I am the Microsoft MVP for Windows 365 category from the November 2022, so only 1 month. Currently, I am working for the ENG Hubs Poland as a senior Microsoft Endpoint Manager engineer. I helped to create an environment to migrate 16,000 of users from the hybrid device, from the local Active Directory domain to the fully cloud devices. I'm content creator for my personal blog and for my YouTube channel. Living near the Warsaw in Poland, father of 2 kids and husband. So it will be everything about me. And the next slide is why you should even think about Windows 365. Because it is very easy to implement. It is depending of the complexity of the environment where you will be deploying it, yes? Because it could be a huge cost for your organization because you need to buy a proper license for every user which will be using the Windows 365 machine. But of course, it will be much lower cost than deploying the whole Citrix farm or remote desktop services farm from the beginning. And it is a cloud solution, so everything is based on the Microsoft Azure servers, and everything what end user need to have is a device. That could be, I don't know, that could be an iPad, that could be a Chromebook, that could be a MacBook, that could be, I don't know, some other devices which can be used to connect to the Windows 365 device. For that case, end user will use the remote desktop application, which is available for the most, I think, every platform. But if it's not available, if this remote application is not available for this specific platform, user just can connect via the browser. So today I was testing that Windows 365 solution, and I was able to connect via the Microsoft Edge on my Android phone. So it also is working, that access is also working properly. The next reason why you should even think about Windows 365, that, for example, you need to onboard for short period of project, for example, 3 months, 30 people, yes? So you need to buy for this 30 people, 30 laptops, for example, or rent them, etc., etc. But you can build the Windows 365 environment, provide them virtual cloud PCs, and those 30 people can be hired by the external vendor, which can deliver the laptops to those people. So those people can use the laptops from the external vendor, and the one cost which you need to pay for it is the license. So you need to buy 30 Windows 365 licenses for example, 3 months, and after that, no more costs. Those you don't need to buy additional laptops. Those laptops are not on your stack. Forgot one word. Sorry. Those laptops are not stay on your company. So this is the main reason why you should even think about Windows 365. And one more. Those cloud PC can be managed via the Intune. So you don't need to create additional policies for the cloud PC. You can use the existing policies for the cloud PC, which you already created for the physical devices. Of course, there are some differences between, I don't know, for example, the TPM 2.0 physical and virtually, but mostly you can use every policies which you have prepared for the physical devices on your cloud PC. And the next slide is why I'm talking so much. Let's do the demo, because everything what I want to show you, I can show you on the live demo. I don't know if that live demo is the proper word, but it's a better to show you than doing the presentation from my perspective. So
People definitely like live demos. So
yeah, especially the live demo. Yes, especially the live demos. First thing what you need to have is licenses. This is my test tenant. I have one Windows 365 Enterprise license. It's 2 virtual CPU, 8 GB of RAMs, 128 GB of SSD. And this is assigned to the one users. Of course, you can buy another license of the Windows 365. So go to the Personal Services, select the Windows 365, we have Windows 365 Enterprise, Windows 365 Business. Business is up to 300 licenses per organization, cannot be managed by the Intune or can be managed on the limited way, so I will focus only on the Windows 365 Enterprise. If we click on the details, we have a plans. We have a plans with 2 virtual CPUs, 4 GB of RAMs, and depending on the disk, 8 GB of RAMs, 4 virtual CPUs, 16 GB of RAM, and the most powerful device has 8 virtual CPUs and 32 GB of memory. One moment, I lost something. It is. So depending of the use case of the machine which we need to buy, you can select the different machine. So for example, for the, I don't know, some office worker, the 2 virtual CPUs, 4 GB and RAM will be enough. Yes, so you can buy this smallest machine and it will be cost 25 euro per month. Of course, this is the purchase directly from the Microsoft. If you will use the CSP, this price will be lower because you can negotiate the price with the CSPs and they can provide you the lower price. If you want to buy some bit powerful machine, for example, this one, you will pay 144 euro per month per user. But from my perspective, it's still lower price than buying or rent that kind of laptop with that kind of specification, especially if that is the short period of a short term of the project, which you will be using that Windows 365 Enterprise. And next, if we have the licenses, you need to assign the licenses to the specific group. I already created some group on my tenant. This license is assigned to this group, license Windows 365 Enterprise, and every user which will be assigned to this group, because I'm using the group licensing, will get the Windows 365 license, but that doesn't do anything because the user still don't have the machine. The user still have only the license. So we need to create something different. We need to create a provisioning policies. So we are going to the Microsoft Endpoint Manager, Windows Devices, Windows 365, and we are in the Overview tab. On the Overview tab, you have all information, how many machines you have on the provisioning state, failed provisioning, how many machines, and in grace period state. If you have some machines in the grace period state, that means those users, those machines from the specific users, those users don't have the license for the Windows 365 machine. And that means this machine exists for the next 7 days. From removing the license from the end user, and after that the license will be destroyed automatically. So user have only 7 days to, I don't know, back up the data, take some data, etc., etc. We have also the Azure network connection health. On my test tenant, all connections are healthy. About this and about the ANC, I will speak later. But if we go to the All Cloud PC, we will see that one machine is already provisioned for my tenant. But that means that I already created a provisioning policy. So we will create another provisioning policy. If we go to the provisioning policy, click Create button, we need to first provide a name for the provisioning policy. And what is the important? You need to provide something which will be fully understandable for the end user, because if you provide test ABC something, user don't know what does it mean. Yes, you need to provide something like Cloud PC per the environment, for example, yes, and user will know that we will be logged on to the Cloud PC production environment. And you need to select the join type and Azure Active Directory join or hybrid Azure Active Directory join. The Azure Active Directory join are fully cloud devices, which I prefer to do, but you can also do the hybrid Azure Active Directory join. If you need to select also the network, Microsoft hosted network or Azure network connection. If you select the Microsoft hosted network, you need to select the geography region. I will select, for example, European Union and region West Europe, North Europe, or automatic recommended. What is the important from my side here? You can provide here on the name Europe CPC, for example, because you can create a multiple provisioning policies. And that means if user will be assigned to the specific group, which will be assigned to the specific provisioning policy, will get the machine from the specific region. For example, you can have assigned that, I don't know, 3-4 CPC license to the end user, but user can get the 4 machine from the 4 geography region. And that means if we'll be connecting from the, for example, from Poland to the US machine, there can be a big lag. So you need to remember if you're deploying the proper, if you're deploying that Windows 365 in your organization, you need to remember about the geography and about the, you need to remember about the geography. So we need to create a couple of provisioning policy. If you select the Azure network connection, if you select the Microsoft hosted network, you don't worry about anything because everything is managed via the Microsoft services. If you select the Azure network connection, you need to select the specific Azure network connection, which you will create on some later. But from my perspective, Microsoft hosted network is enough for the most of cases which I was working. So I will select European Union and automatic recommended. You can also select the join type, hybrid Azure Active Directory join. It will be not available here because I don't have an ANC created. So one more time, European Union, automatic. The image type, you need to select the image which you want to use for your machine. And you have 2 options to select, gallery image or custom image. If you select the gallery image, you can change and you can select from the predefined images by the Microsoft. Here is the Windows 11 Enterprise and OS optimization, or Windows 11 Enterprise with Microsoft 365 apps. There is a different version, 22H2, 21H2, 20H2, etc., etc. So you need to remember to select a proper version. You can select also own image. There will be no my own image on that tenant, but if you select the own image, you can speed up the provisioning of the cloud PC. Because, for example, real use case, the developers, yes, they require multiple software like Visual Studio, JetBrains, etc., etc. Installation of that software can take a long time, and it will be wasting of time for the end users. Yes, so you can prepare some image and upload it to the Microsoft Azure and provision it here to the Windows 365. So this software, like the Visual Studio, it will be already installed on the system, and you don't need to install it during the autopilot or after the first logon of the user. So you can speed up the work using the custom image. I will select the gallery image. Could be this, Windows 11. Clicking the next, we have the configuration window. You need to select a region and language, and that is what I mentioned earlier. Depending of the provisioning policies, you can select, for example, you can create a Polish provisioning policy where the end user will see the interface on the Polish language. Additional services, if you have configured the Windows Autopath, you can use them. I will be using the Intune to manage the to manage the updates. So I will be selecting the known assignments, and here you should assign the provisioning policy to the specific group of users. I will select the Windows 365 Enterprise because I will be using only the one provisioning policy. But if you have multiple provisioning policies, you should have multiple groups for that provisioning policies. On this Windows 365 license, there should be users with that proper license, but provisioning policies should be assigned to the provisioning groups, not the provisioning license group. So I will select here, click next, and we have the we have what? We have summary, everything what is what we configured. We can click on create button, and the provisioning policy it will be created. That means if user don't have license but don't have already provisioned Cloud PC, the provisioning will start working immediately, and that means the police machine will be created in the next 30 to 45 minutes, if I remember correctly the time. And after the 45 minutes, the machine will be created. I can, of course, click on that machine which was created earlier. We have the standard view for the machine, which is available on the for the physical devices on the Microsoft Intune. We have device name, who is the primary user. We have some properties. We have performance preview. Probably, it is not empty. And this is we have some reports. We have time connected to devices. We have the hardware tab. There is a standard information which is available for every device in the Microsoft Intune. But there is also additional tabs like the restore points. For example, we can restore the Cloud PC to the specific time, the time which we will configure in the Windows 365 panel in the user settings. We can restore the machine to the specific time. Yes, for example, before the installation of the, I don't know, some wrong update of the software, and this machine will be restored to this specific time. Also, we have some additional information on the top. We have the restore button. We have the reprovision. The reprovision means that you can destroy the current machine, and the new machine will be provisioned for end user. You can click the resize. If you have proper licenses, you can select that this machine will be reprovisioned to the 8 virtual CPU with 32 GB of RAM and the specific disk. But I don't have proper license, so I cannot click the resize button. Also, there is also one of the latest feature, place Cloud PC in the review. That means this is taking the snapshot of the disk, and this disk can be downloaded from the Microsoft Azure and provided to some IT analyze, or I don't know, legal analyze. I don't know if legal is a proper word, but yeah, this is something legal stuff. If we go again to the Windows 365 provisioning, we have provisioning policies, we have custom images. About the custom images, I told you earlier that you can create some custom image which will be used for the speed up the provisioning policies. But we have something also, the Azure network connection. Yes, I can create some Azure Active Directory join connection or hybrid Azure Active Directory join. If I create Azure Active Directory join, I need to provide a name, add the connection. I need to select a subscription, resource group, virtual network, and subnet. And those devices will be assigned directly to my virtual network and to the specific dev subnet. That means we can manage the network via the Microsoft Azure, which will be useful when you want to configure firewall, etc., etc. You can also create an hybrid Azure Active Directory join. Hybrid. I will select the subscription, resource group. I will select the network from the dev box. Click the next button, and here you need to provide a name for that local Active Directory. You need to select you need to provide OU. You need to provide an Active Directory UPN, domain password, and Active Directory domain password also. But you need to remember that you need to provide here something in the domain join, my domain You cannot provide because it need to be on the UPN format. If you provide that kind of data, you will be able to do a hybrid Azure Active Directory join for that Windows 365 machines. And the last thing is the user settings. You can create a specific user settings, which will be assigned not to the machine groups, but to the users. If you click Add, you need to provide us some name. CPC, for example. If you click Enable Local Admin, only user from that specific group, which will be assigned that user settings, will have a local admin on the all cloud PC devices to which will log on. And point in time restore service. You can allow users to initiate restore services. So that means the machine can be restored not only by the IT, but also by the local user. So the local user, end user, don't need to call to the service desk and ask, hey, could you please restore my machine to the previous state or to the state from yesterday, because I have some folder on some document on the, I don't know, trash, recycle bin, and the recycle bin was empty today. So I need, some users are storing the important data in the recycle bin, of course. And yes, that means the user settings can be created and need to be assignment to the user groups, not the machine groups. Because if you assign this user settings to the machine group, they will be not working. If we have already created the provisioning policy, that means we have created a cloud PC. Everything what you need to do is create a dynamic group, which will contains all cloud PC. Dynamic membership rules, device display name start with CPC, because every CPC device has this on the beginning. You cannot change it. It's by default, so need to be configured like this. If you have created a dynamic group for all CPC devices, you can start managing them. So we can go, for example, to the devices, Windows configuration profile, because this is the new tenant created, I don't even remember, a couple of days ago. Yes, I don't have any configuration profile, but you can create, for example, OneDrive configuration. That means user don't need to do anything with OneDrive to have it configured properly. You just need to configure a proper setting. So we are here, OneDrive configuration, continuous syncing on Methernet networks. You need to configure everything what you want and what is required by the organization. If you configured everything what you need to assign this policy to the specific group. I will be using the all CPC devices without any filter. That means the all CPC devices will receive the configuration for the OneDrive. Of course, what you will configure, that is only to decide by you or by your boss or by your product owner or by your organization. You can configure most everything settings using the Microsoft Intune. If there is no settings in the settings catalog or administrative templates, you can custom import the mix and do the manual job to configure. But but you can configure most everything. You can configure also the security baselines. There is a specific security baseline only for the Windows 365. I can click here, and there is a one baseline Windows 365, which I already created. And those settings are predefined by Microsoft. Not predefined. They are recommended by the most of organization and by the Microsoft. But you can leave it as by default configured by Microsoft and assigned to the specific cloud PC or for the another devices, but you can also configure that settings by your request, but that's what you need. when the security baseline is created, when we have some configuration profiles already created, we can configure the endpoint security, firewall rules, account protection. You can create also the local group membership, account protection. You can disable the Windows Hello because it will be available. Don't know why, because it will be a RDP connection, and the Windows Hello for Business, it will be not working. But if you have everything properly configured, you can just ask the user to log on to the specific device. End user needs to open the windows365.microsoft.com website, log on with own Azure Active Directory credential, and after that, end user will see that kind of view. There is a your cloud PC. You see CPC PRD. That means that that information need to be understandable for the end user. And here there is the name of the current user, which is logged on. I can restart, I can rename that machine, I can click the troubleshoot, or I can click system information. Here is information what license I have, device name, cloud PC name, and information about class sign in. If I click here, open in browser, the RDP session will be opened in the browser. So user can work without the remote desktop application. But from my experience, the working from the browser is very, I don't want to use the bad word, but it's very slow. And use the browser only which is needed, and there is no remote desktop possibility to use the remote desktop connection. But if we go to here, download an app to use Windows 365 from your device, you can download the remote desktop for Windows, iOS, for Mac, for Android. And that's what I said earlier. For most every platform, the remote desktop application is available. You can also use the remote desktop application on your Android phone. You just need to get the subscription URL, provide that URL, log on, and you can connect from your phone to the Windows 365 machine. You can also use the Windows 365 new Windows 365 application for Windows, which is available for now only for the Windows 11, but it will be probably available for the Windows 10 also. So yes, this application needs to be downloaded. And if we click on the open in browser, the remote session will be opened. You can select which should be forwarded to the cloud PC, printer, microphone, or clipboard. You can select alternative keyboard layout. If you click connect, you will be connected directly to the cloud PC. I need to provide my password. And it is everything, because you see, end user is logged to the machine. Sorry, it is in Polish. End user is logged in directly to the cloud PC via the browser without any of additional application. OneDrive is already configured because I pushed the configuration for the OneDrive synchronization. So end user don't need to do anything. End user just need to log onto this machine and start working. And that is the short story for the cloud PC. I showed you everything, what you need to know, how to create a cloud PC. You need to know that there is a multiple license for the Windows 365. It's depending of the size what you want to provide to your end user. You can create a multiple provisioning policies. You can create a custom images to speed up the process, provisioning process for the end user. You can use the Azure network connection, custom Azure network connection. You don't need to use the Microsoft hosted network. You can create a multiple user settings, but you can also we'll see. Reprovision the machine. Yes, I will be able to destroy this machine if I will remove the user from the group. And you need to also properly configure those devices via the configuration profile and endpoint security. So it was very short presentation from my side because yeah, I decided to do a short presentation. Sorry, Nate, because it is easy to deploy for your organization, but if you are working for the bank, for example, you need to remember about the compliance policy. You need to talk with the security guy if we will be using the Microsoft hosted network or we will be using the Microsoft Azure network connection, INC, and build the network by our own organization. You need to remember if you want to use the fully Azure Active Directory join or you want to use the hybrid Azure Active Directory join. So first thing what you need to do is do a to-do list, what is required by your organization. And after that, just start creating a proof of concept. If the proof of concept will be working, provision more people, do the next tests, and yeah, and finish that project. It was, I think, yeah, it was very easy of implementation of the Windows 365. So you can contact me using my email address, using my Twitter, or if anyone is using the Mastodon, I'm also on the Mastodon. So if there is any question, feel free to ask.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jakub. So does anybody have any questions for Jakub? No, so just out of interest, is anybody using Windows 365? How are you finding it?
No one is using the Windows 365.
Yeah, it's quite, so as I mentioned, so I've been following Windows 365 quite a while now. So what we noticed is when it first came out, I wasn't too sure about it, but it certainly as more and more features are going into it, it's certainly becoming a more and more compelling product. What I hear people say often is it AVD versus Windows 365? And it's certainly not the case because both products have their unique use cases, right? So I always say with products like the product that you choose is a product which fits the customer's requirements, for example. So some customers may prefer AVD, some customers prefer Windows 365, depending on what they need. But for me, for Windows 365, if you've got a set amount of users who you know are going to be using those desktops like Monday to Friday, 5 days a week, for example, Windows 365, great product. And I think Microsoft are very serious about it, obviously, and they're putting a lot of effort into it. As we know, Scott Manchester is now the sort of leader of Windows 365 and also Azure Virtual Desktop. So it's a very exciting time to be in IT, because the technology is just getting better and better and better, and it's getting simpler, it's getting easier. So it's a great product. Certainly, we're going to see a lot more on Windows 365 in the years to come, I think. So. Cool.
From my perspective, using the Windows 365, it is much easier for the IT because there's no, as I know, configuring AVD is much difficult than Windows 365. For the Windows 365, one provisioning policy, thank you, enough. Yes. For the AVD, I didn't deploy it, AVD. Never. So, but from that way, what I read, it is not easy.
But for me, I mean, it comes down to cost, right? The cost of a solution. So, for example, with Windows 365, my biggest bugbear is the fact that you have to go and buy licenses for the users, right? And if that user doesn't use that system, then you're still going to have to pay for it. Right? But obviously, with Azure Virtual Desktop, it's dynamic. If you don't use it, you don't pay for it. Certainly. So when I'm speaking to customers, that's most of the conversation that we have is like, well, what's your workload like? So that's what I mean. If you have like a guaranteed 500 users who are going to use that desktop Monday to Friday, absolutely, it makes perfect sense to use Windows 365. But if you've got a workload which is very much varied, then AVD may be the one to go for. But again, if you've also got a IT admin who got a very set Intune, they've already got their applications in Intune, they've got their policies set. I mean, I've been saying this for a few years now. I think Intune is an amazing product because it doesn't care what device you've got, right? I don't care whether you're a phone, I don't care whether you're a physical device, I don't care whether you're on a Azure Virtual Desktop, I don't care whether you're a Windows 365. I'm just going to deploy a set of application policies, applications, policies, settings, irrelevant. So I think that's great. But to me, it goes down to cost. But as I said before, it's down to the use case, essentially. So it's certainly it's good to have both products on the market, right? Because we can pick and choose whichever product fits best for the customer. And we don't have to choose AVD. We don't have to choose Windows 365. We can choose whichever one fits that use case the best, essentially. So that's my take on it.
Yes, you have already.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments, questions before we call it a night? Okay, good. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. As I mentioned, look out for the 15th because we've got an announcement to make. We're going to be doing a lot more in-person events, and we've got some big changes coming as well. That's all I can tell you right now. But we'll be making an announcement on the 15th around that. So thanks for joining. I'll put the link on the. Well, I'll send out. I'm going to upload this to YouTube, and I'll put the link out to the group as well, to the message. So we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Okay.